Hello, and welcome to Bonhill Geography. In today's video, we'll be talking about water, particularly in the UK. Now, water is the foundation of life, yet in the UK this vital resource is under increasing amounts of pressure. From rising demand and pollution to regional shortages and even climate change, the way that water is managed is more important than ever. Water demand in the UK has changed dramatically over the past 50 years. In the 1960s, the average person used around 85 litres of water per day. Today, that figure is closer to 142 litres, which is a 67% increase. This rise is driven by population growth, increased household appliances, and lifestyle changes. Despite this, it's important to note that many modern devices actually use less water than older models. For example, dishwashers and washing machines. The most significant trend is the change towards cleanliness, with people having more regular washing routines. Now, the UK's population is projected to reach over 75 million by 2050, with most of that growth concentrated in the already very much water-stressed southeast. Agriculture and industry also contribute significantly because irrigation is needed due to drier summers, and industries like food processing and energy production are major water users. Water quality in the UK has improved significantly since the 1990s, mainly thanks to EU directives and improvements in national regulations from the government. However, pollution still remains a serious issue. There are three main sources of water pollution, including agricultural runoff, mainly from agribusiness, urban runoff, and sewage discharges. Agricultural runoff, normally from agribusiness, introduces fertilizers and pesticides into rivers. These can lead to algal blooms, which then in turn lead to eutrophication, which can significantly harm marine life, sometimes even depriving all oxygen from the water underneath it. As a result, no fish, no insects. Urban runoff carries oil, heavy metals, and litter from roads and pavements into the waterways during high levels of rainfall. Sometimes this can even lead to increased flood risk as it provides a direct path to the river, and if that area becomes blocked, then obviously our risk is going to increase in the area with the drain in. Combined sewer overflows, or CSOs for short, release untreated sewage during heavy rainfall because the sewers simply can't cope with it. In 2023 alone, over 300,000 incidents were recorded in England. The Environment Agency and water companies are investing in upgrades, but campaigners argue that enforcement is still too weak. Okay, next let's talk about our distribution of rainfall. The north and the west, including Wales, Cumbria and Scotland, receive over 2,000 millimetres of rainfall annually. In contrast, the southeast can sometimes receive less than 600 millimetres. That creates a very significant contrast between the areas of surplus in the northwest of England, Wales and Scotland, and deficit in areas like London, East Anglia and Kent, potentially even parts of the Midlands. During dry years, these deficits become critical. In 2022, Thames Water had to impose hosepipe bans, and reservoirs like Ardingly and Buell Water dropped to record lows, and luckily were saved by a small belt of rainfall. Now, to address these regional imbalances, the UK's tried a few different things, the first of which being a water transfer scheme. One of the most significant is the Ely Ouse to Essex transfer scheme built in the 1970s. That was a bit of a mouthful. Now, this system moves water from the River Ouse to the River Stour and then to reservoirs in Essex. This helps to improve water security for over 1.5 million people. Now, that water is pumped through a network of pipelines and tunnels, including the 48-kilometre long Kennet-Blackwater pipeline. Now, this is a lifeline for one of the driest regions in the UK. However, as you can imagine, these water transfers come with quite significant challenges, because river flows have to be altered, which can harm ecosystems, and pumping water over a long distance consumes electricity. As you can also imagine, the infrastructure is very expensive to build and to actually maintain, because 48 kilometres for one stretch of concrete pipe would cost a significant portion of taxpayer money. Now, to secure future supplies, the UK is exploring a mix of different solutions. Today we'll talk about grey water recycling, desalination and building new reservoirs as our three key strategies. First up, grey water recycling. Now this involves reusing water from baths, showers and washing machines for non-potable uses like toilet flushing and irrigation. Its advantages include reducing mains water demand by up to 30%, meaning there's less water that actually has to be used that's fresh. It lowers water bills and is quite useful in homes, hotels and commercial buildings. However, it does have disadvantages, particularly the high installation cost and maintenance costs, the need for a dual plumbing system and a potential risk of contamination if it's not properly managed, potentially even leading to things like Legionella. Gross. Next we have desalination. This removes salt water from seawater. Now, the UK's first large-scale plant opened back in Beckton in East London in 2010. Now this supplies 150 million litres per day, which is quite a lot of amount of 400,000 homes, particularly within London itself. Now this is particularly reliable during a drought, and it's ideal for coastal cities, similar to London, and reduces pressure on freshwater sources. But, as with everything, it's incredibly energy intensive, meaning it requires lots of electricity use. It's expensive to operate and produces a brine waste that it must be very carefully managed to avoid harming wildlife, so it can't just be put straight back into the sea. Next we have reservoirs. Now these store water during wet periods for use in dry months. A major new reservoir is being planned in South Lincolnshire, and that's expected to supply 500,000 homes and support agriculture. Reservoirs offer long-term, large-scale water storage and support flood control and recreation. They can also be integrated with nature reserves. However, they do have very high environmental and social impacts, particularly if they are flooding large areas behind them, as we talked about in our energy security video with hydroelectricity, or displacing communities. They have very long planning times and construction timelines, and risk evaporation losses during the hot summers. Sometimes you can see small black balls placed on the surface, and they are an attempt to keep the water underneath them cool. Quite simply, the future of the water in the UK depends on a mix of technology, policy and public action. One way in which the UK government is trying to help people is using smart meters. These help households monitor and reduce their use of water. Rainwater harvesting systems are also quite common because they collect water for gardens and toilets, meaning less fresh water has to be used. Nature-based solutions like wetland restoration can also help to improve water quality and biodiversity. Public education campaigns encourage water-saving habits, like fixing leaks and using water-efficient appliances, but also even taking shorter showers. Now it's important to note that there are many water-efficient devices now in many homes in the UK. These include dual flush toilets, aerated taps, and as previously mentioned, washing devices like washing machines and dishwashers, which are more water and energy efficient. But as previously stated as well, essentially the use of these and requirement for them has continued to increase and will continue to do so to 2050, where we expect to see 75 million people in the UK. Before we get into the questions, when answering questions on this topic, it's essential that you understand the sustainability of water supplies. Less fresh water is being used, so the scheme is more sustainable because we are not using groundwater reserves, for example. Here are 4 exam questions you could have a try at. 1. Explain why desalination creates both advantages and disadvantages. Again, we'd use 2PEL paragraphs. That took me a minute there. 2. Explain why the usefulness of grey water recycling in long-term water sustainability. Again, 2 PEL paragraphs. 1 paragraph on why it is, 1 paragraph why it's not. Explain why how water transfer schemes create both opportunities and challenges. So why do we need it? Why is that good? What are the challenges of using it? 4. Suggest how the UK can increase its water security sustainably. That's a nice question because we could talk about any of the strategies that you have mentioned. Thank you for watching Bonhill Geography. I'll catch you in the next video.